Welcome back to the Purple Rock Podcast. We're back at full strength this week. Andy is back in his maple-soaked motherland. And Andy, let's get your quick thoughts on last week's episode since we missed them while you were gone.
Yeah, my basic reaction is I picked the wrong week to leave. Last week was pretty awesome. I think it had kind of a capital M moment with Caleb at Tribal Council, the sort of thing that we'll probably be referencing for years to come as a possible move that a player could do. This week, it's just one of those weeks for Survivor. There really isn't a whole lot of sizzle there.
Yeah, it was one of those where they call it a blindside, but it just didn't feel very blindsidey. It was okay.
Yeah, technically blindside because Laura M, I think, felt reasonably secure, and that Laura B was just the obvious choice. But for us as an audience, whatever. This was a first vote week. It took us 6 weeks to get there, but there's two people that we weren't overly invested in. Someone had to go home, and that's just what happens sometimes on Survivor.
Yeah, and I should mention, by the way, because I totally forgot to introduce myself before introducing you. I am John. This is my co-host, Andy.
So, anything else to say in kind of general about this episode?
Maybe it was this way for you, I don't know. But I kind of felt a little tinge of sadness that Candace was leaving. What'd you think?
No, not really.
Not at all, huh?
Actually, so I had this reaction before she was ever voted out, when they kind of did her interview that, kill her, be killed, and then when she's going off on Monica. Candace is one of those women that if you wrong her once, that's it. You're dead to her. And that's not exactly a good way for a Survivor player to be.
Yeah, no, she will never win, much like Amanda Kimmel, who will never win. But I feel like they have radically different flaws in their game that prevent them from winning.
Yeah, so just like how Redemption Island was kind of a boon to Ozzy because it freed him from the strategic part of the game that he's never really been any good at, Redemption Island for Candace freed her from the social game that she's never really been good at. The impression I get from Candace is that she's the kind of person that's never really had to work hard to have people in her life. She probably has always been able to maintain a bit of an aloofness, and you saw this all the way going back to Cook Islands. She got in with a few friends there and then never really bonded to anybody else. And then at All-Stars, she never bonded with a single person, and same with this season. So, yeah, that's kind of a problem, given that the main skill that you need to have to succeed as Survivor is the ability to get along with other people.
On the bright side, she is very successful in her career. She's married to an incredibly attractive guy, and they're probably pretty rich themselves.
Yeah, Candace stay winning. So, I mean, we're just two guys talking into microphones about a show she's been on 3 times. But in terms of, sad to see her go, not really. I probably would have preferred to see her stick around than the other two guys on Redemption Island, but I didn't really need to see her re-enter the game.
So yeah, speaking of Redemption Island, I want to call out a little something that I saw you posted this week. Since you weren't available for last week, you did post your predictions just because you wanted them on the record for when you were inevitably right.
Big mistake.
Exactly, huge mistake. And you know why? Because you said Brad was going home. I'm going to totally ignore the fact that I also said Brad was going home because Brad did not go home.
Yeah, I was off my game. Apparently I do better in the spoken medium than the writing one. But in some ways, I'm kind of glad that both of my predictions failed to be correct this week, because one more week, and I think people would just say, yeah, this guy's reading spoilers. So
yeah, so your other prediction was that Kat was going to be the one going home. You did at least figure out that it was going to be the returnees that lost the challenge this time.
And we'll talk about the end at the end, but I think that was a mistake. I think they should have voted out Kat.
I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily... Well, there's one other option that I would have considered, but we'll get to that end point later. Anyway, just other episode impressions. Once again, at least for me, Vetus continues to show some skill. I thought he lacked it a little bit of the finesse with Caleb when he was talking about Caleb's luscious skin while they were out on the boat. Just seemed a little bit too flattery.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe too?
Well, I think that probably shows the kind of guy that Caleb is. Vetus was, unfolding his game and talking, and he was getting nothing from Caleb. So he just kind of had to start throwing bombs. Like, I gotta see something. What will get me into this guy's head? And nothing was working.
Yeah, Caleb is just a bearded wall of silence.
But yeah, getting back to Vetus, he is the star so far this season, and probably the most promising candidate they've had since Malcolm, which isn't that long ago, but he's in that class. He's a Malcolm, a Cochran, that level of character.
I love that he seems like someone. If he's not a longtime fan of the show, at the very least, he watched a bunch of seasons, like crammed for this, like it was an exam.
Yeah, and you see that he's like still studying, perhaps because he's going back on the island in a few months. Because on Twitter he's breaking it down like he hosts a podcast.
Oh, we'll get to some Twitter stuff later. Trust me. There were some things that went down this week that I want to discuss. You've got us following all these survivors on Twitter, and now I'm seeing things that I don't know if I ever wanted to know, but it does make me laugh.
Yeah, there's a whole other world out there. But yeah, Vytas, is he going to win?
No, I still don't see it. I'm sticking to my earlier prediction that at some point, and I think it's around Final 5, Final 7 even, it's going to be Aris that backstabs him.
Yeah, so this episode was the first time that I'm like, I think Vytas might be our winner. And it was basically just because of the way that the camera was framing him. So when he was getting his big, yoga posing on the top of the mountain with the sunset coming in, like that's the kind of shot that they like to throw in the winner's montage. Like I haven't seen an edit like that since Earl Cole and Fiji, which you didn't see. But they were always just throwing, Earl on the top of a mountain with the helicopter shot, giving 360 spin around him. And like people at the time were like, wow, could you be more obvious?
Well, I thought there was another person that I thought got a bit of a winner's edit this week, and that was Tina. I think we finally got to see a few shades of Tina's strategy in there. I mean, obviously she's aligned with that 5-person group, but just her already starting to sniff out that maybe Monica's not the best fifth wheel for that alliance. It's clear that Tina and Aris are running things, and I just feel like we're starting to see that Tina's going to get some credit here.
Yeah, I actually think, of that 5-person alliance on the returning side, I'd put Tina at the top of the power rankings. Because there's already, some infighting behind the scenes between Tyson and Aris. And, Jervis is Jervis, but I think Tina's the one that could just split the middle and win this whole thing.
I think Tina is playing, we've talked earlier in the season about how Brad was playing the best Brad type game. Tina is absolutely playing the Tina game. This is the only way she can play, and she plays it very well.
It kind of shows that that's the sort of game that is generally successful. All-Stars was a bit of an aberration. She never had a chance to play. She was immediately targeted because of Jenna Lewis didn't want returning players. And sometimes a great social game isn't going to work if you're put on a tribe of people that are nothing like you. But typically a good, strong social game will be portable. It will allow you can play it in many different ways in many different seasons.
Yeah, and I think it almost works to her advantage that she's just seemingly not any sort of challenge threat, although she's not really bad at challenges.
No, she's not sitting out a lot.
No, and you would know if she was bad at challenges because Probst has a tendency to call you out if you suck at challenges, and we're not hearing Tina's names at those challenges.
Clarifier, Probst has a history of calling you out if you happen to have the right combination of chromosomes.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more Probst discussion later because there was some interesting talk about that over the last week or so. The one other thing that I noticed this episode that I posed to you before we went on tonight is that it feels to me like Tyson and Vytas are playing the exact same game on opposite tribes.
Explain.
To me, it feels like both Vytas and Tyson are letting someone else run the show. They're both, reasonably athletic. They're doing okay at challenges, but they're letting everybody else kind of coordinate, strategize, making it seem like they're not the brains behind the operation. Tyson tonight, he showed that he has matured a bit because I think in previous seasons when someone would have said to Tyson, hey, who do you want to vote out? He wouldn't have made the easy pick and said Laura. He would have overplayed it and tried strategizing too early and say, oh, we have to make a big move now when it's the first move that they're making. He's not doing that. And I think Vytas isn't either. It strikes me as them having a weird parallel in their games.
Maybe prior to last night's episode, I think pretty clearly Vytas is now the alpha of his tribe. Almost by default. Who else would it be?
Yeah, I guess Caleb as the swing vote now is his shield. The thing is, he would have gladly kept Brad around. He only did vote Brad out for self-preservation. So, again, I think just to me it seems like they both at least had the same idea of how to play the game. It just on different tribes. Tyson's is working out a little bit better at the moment, from what we can see at least.
All right, so I guess my one thing about this episode in terms of overall impression, yeah, it was just kind of one of those Survivor episodes. Not a lot happened. But the season thus far has been strong enough that I liked when it was coloring in the margins this episode. I liked the character stuff. I liked finally getting to know a little bit of what was going on in the returnees tribe. So I think that's a positive for this season, that the first kind of blah, nothing really happened episode was still relatively satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're still in the relatively early part of the season, and I think the AV Club gave it a B. That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I mean, it was
a B.
It was pretty good. It wasn't bad. You know, a lot of times in the early season you'll get the clunkers, and this was not one of those.
Okay, so then we had an immunity challenge, and the loved ones finally win. They finally win. They will not be oolonged.
You know why they finally won?
Because it was the most random, easy challenge ever?
They didn't have Brad.
Ah, yes. Team Unity.
It was a really weird challenge. It was like, hey, water slide and then throw something on a ring. Why would you not, by the way, always aim for that lower ring? Doesn't it just seem like that one stick shooting out on the bottom would be the easiest thing to hit?
Well, maybe you aim for the higher one, because then you'd have the lower one as your safety score.
You know who would know the answer to this?
Leaf?
Reynolds.
Reynolds just aims for the hardest. Put it up a little higher, I need a challenge. But actually, they did a challenge like this before in One World. The only reason why I know that is everybody was like, this challenge is so much better when a little person's on the slide.
Yeah, Leaf almost went flying in that challenge. But Leaf did not, unfortunately, have the throwing thing skill that Reynolds demonstrated.
The ability to do anything, really.
That's true.
So as presented, this challenge couldn't have taken any more than 10 minutes, right?
I can't imagine it did. It was kind of like, who wants to go on the water slide next? Whee! And done.
Yeah, so I suspect it's one of those where it was more than a first to 5 situation. They probably did like 20 runs of this, and then they just cut in like the final one.
At this point, I wouldn't be too surprised if it was just 5. Maybe they were lethargic. They were barely getting up the ladder to go down the slide. They were like, screw it, we'll make it 5.
Or maybe they'd yeah. Ones will be like, we'll tell you when we're close to the end.
Yeah. As soon as the loved ones reach a nice round number, a 5, a 10, or whatever, then the challenge is over.
But yeah, I mean, this is basically why I predicted why the loved ones would win this week. This show needs there not to be an oolong.
Yeah, absolutely. And they sort of help stack the odds in their favor. So after the challenge, we get back to the returnees camp, and Laura B., I think we saw her for the first time since episode 1, maybe. Laura B. comes up to Kat with all the just smoothness and social grace of me as a 15-year-old talking to a woman. Like, she had no idea how to approach the situation. She just went with this bizarre, hey Kat, those girls don't like you move that I was just watching, almost like covering my eyes. Like, what is happening right now? It was like Survivor horror show.
Yeah, like even Rupert was like, whoa, like I showed more class coming out of that tribal council than I caught votes.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree there. And really, I had nothing against Laura. I mean, she seemed to be playing a okay enough game, but man, for that being the first clip of her that we got to see since episode 1, not a strong edit for her.
No, and like, you kind of feel sorry for her because clearly she's been marginalized and not much else she could do, and it's like, you want to see if you can find some fissures or whatever, but it was just so naked. It was, yeah, as you said, cringeworthy.
Yeah, well, you know when I really felt sorry for her, though, is when we actually get to tribal council. And I mean, we've talked before about how Probst has his preferences and whatnot, but wow, the comment to Laura B., which was basically, should you even be here, was just over the top, even for Probst.
Yeah, too bad she didn't, she didn't have the wherewithal to just throw it right back at him. It's like, well, you tell me. You're the ones that wanted my husband so damn much.
Uh-oh, we're gonna have to bleep that one.
Yeah, I know. Me with the potty mouth.
Probst enrages you with his rampant favoritism.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a bit much. I mean, he'd already gotten what he needed out of that questions, and he's just like, no, you haven't suffered enough.
Yeah.
Your being here disgusts me.
It really did seem like just kicking her when she was down. I mean, she was basically trying her best to fit in with the tribe, and Jeff's like the bully pointing out to her like, no, you'll never fit in, nerd, get back in your locker. It was really weird.
What really offended me is that he tried to do a Rupert impression. It's like, that's my job.
Exactly.
Stay out of my territory.
The man needs to know his boundaries. Anyway, it fairly, I guess it was a blindside, but again, it didn't feel like a very eventful tribal council. We were kind of tipped off that Laura M was going to be the one going home because of relentless CBS promos saying that it was going to be a blindside this week. So at a certain point you realize, okay, well, Laura B is not the blindside candidate here.
Nope.
So Laura M goes home after, of course, making the comment about how much it stings to have been voted out. By the way, she's talking about how everyone there had felt that sting before. No. Aris.
Yeah.
Aris is the lone person there that has never felt the sting of being voted out.
So the big thinking was, this was Aris's move, and he wanted to put Laura M on Redemption Island in the hopes that she could win challenges and take Brad out of the game, thus securing Monica. What did you think of all that?
That, to me, I get the logic behind it. It's not actually a terrible move. It just seems like a post-merge move, and it's too early for it. I feel like there's still time. I mean, this is their first chance to vote anybody out. Laura B is the easy play, and as we discussed earlier, I kind of feel like Kat is the logical candidate, just because she's not contributing much to your alliance. You don't really need her physical strength anymore anyway. I would have personally gone with Kat. Maybe they see her as potentially being useful down the line. I would have cut ties with her right then, though.
Yeah, I mean, as laid out by Aris, strategically it kind of made sense for everybody in that alliance but Aris. I mean, yeah, I understand if Tyson wanted to do it that way, if Jervis, Tina, I mean, maybe obviously not Monica, but for Aris, it's like, what are you doing here? Clearly, Laura M is loyal to you.
Yeah.
You want to keep those kind of players in the game. It's kind of like the dream scenario where you have your alliance with like 4 other people, but then you have your side piece that basically will do what you need them to do. If there was ever started to make movements against Aris, which looks like there's going to be movements against Aris, she'd go and tell him.
Yeah, it strikes me as an odd strategy for him just because of that. Because she clearly got the vibe that she was on the outs of that 5-person alliance.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get if other people wanted to take her out, that Aris shouldn't expend any kind of goodwill to keep her around. Pawns are great, but not if they start to hurt you or make you seem questionable in people's eyes. But as presented, this was like his move, and it's like I just didn't understand what he was doing there.
So let me throw out this alternative theory for you then. What if this wasn't actually Aris's move? What if this was actually Tina's idea?
It's possible. So are you suggesting that there was a social and strategic move played by a woman on the show and it was presented as an alpha male's idea? I can't accept that.
I realize it might be a bridge too far for most people to accept that would ever happen on this show. But we got Tina earlier just making the confessional that Monica plus Brad was a little bit too much for her, and she wanted to cut that out and get Monica loyal to just her. I think she probably realized the best bet was not to send Laura B to that Redemption Island and try to take out Brad, because that's just not going to happen. But I'm thinking she goes and puts a bug in Aris's ear, or even just leads Aris to the conclusion that, hey, maybe you should be the one suggesting that we vote Laura M out. Because that's just such a Tina move, just put that bug in their ear, make them think it's their own play, and then Aris goes and suggests that it should be Laura M that goes home.
Yeah, so if that is what happened, I'd respect it a whole lot and hate the show for not showing me that.
Yeah, but again, Tina's gonna get a short shrift on the edit just because of her particular set of chromosomes.
And age. Don't forget age.
Age certainly doesn't help her case. But there's people out here that love Tina. I'm one of them.
Hey, it's their third time on the show. Like, I don't think Tina's one of those that Probst hates, but, they didn't exactly profile her for a lot of Australia either until they couldn't help but not.
That is very true. They made that the Colby Show until it was absolutely not the Colby Show anymore.
Alright, so that's kind of the episode. I guess the only other thing to discuss was when the loved ones won immunity, they also won reward. They had a choice between steaks and fishing gear, and they chose steaks.
I can't believe that this was even a debate. I mean, you take the steak.
Yeah.
The merge is coming soon. You're going to get the fishing gear anyway, and those were some very thick steaks.
Yeah, and here's what they don't report. For whatever reason, they already had a Hawaiian sling. Pretty much Hawaiian slings are more useful for fishing on Survivor than strings and hooks. So yeah, easy decision.
And we've seen the fish that they come back with from their fishing expeditions. They're always less than the size of your hand. I mean, you're sharing that with 5 other people. Come on. Those steaks, especially because Sierra's one of the people you're sharing with, you're basically sharing with just 4 people.
No, Sierra ate 3 by herself. She needs all the protein.
She just packed it in.
Alright, so let's move away from this episode, and there was just some random Survivor talk out there in the ether that you wanted to get to.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, you have us following, and I'm blaming you for this because this is entirely your fault. You have us following with our Purple Rock Pod at Purple Rock Pod account on Twitter. All sorts of Survivor former competitors, current people that are playing, and there was some interesting stuff that floated out this week.
Yeah, so basically we follow pretty much anybody that's been on the show unless we A, hate them, or B, find that they only tweet about their boring lives and not about Survivor.
Yeah, I had to explicitly unfollow a few of the people that you picked because who was on there? There was Colton, there was Russell Hantz.
I've never followed Russell Hantz. You take that back right now.
Did you not? I feel like you did.
Nah.
I think maybe someone else retweeted Russell Hantz, and that's why I thought you had done so.
Yeah, he responded to something that we were in a conversation of.
That's what it was. Okay, so anyway, Laura M. started off the weirdness by saying that she had this very long-winded message about how she wanted to, before the episode even aired, she wanted to clear some things up, and that she was portrayed badly in this episode as though she was being intimate, and she would never do that. And so then we get to the episode, and it's just her giving Aras a massage. So what?
Well, it was a little close. Like, if you didn't know that she was married, you could be like, this could be the start of a showmance. But what I want to know is, how did she know how she was being portrayed before the episode even aired?
Spoiler alert, she got a preview.
I didn't know they'd do that. But yeah, no, look, if she says there was nothing to it, I'm sure there was nothing to it. Physical contact amongst contestants on Survivor isn't the same as physical contact amongst people in an office.
It's really not. I feel like the cuddle sessions between Tyson and Aras earlier this season were a little more heavy than that particular massage was.
Well, as they should be. Like, I thought they were going to set that hammock on fire.
Oh, so much sex appeal in that hammock.
But that wasn't the most interesting thing to come out of Twitter and Survivor this week.
No, there was actually some other stuff. I figure you'll like this because both you and I are not fans of either of these people. But Ozzy and Coach got into a bit of a feud, which is hilarious because both Ozzy and Coach seem like very petty people. And Coach went off on a tirade about how Ozzy had poisoned the jury against him in South Pacific and had cost him the $1 million. Ozzy in turn responds with, Coach, you're a pathetic man. Are you suggesting that I have the skill to do that and convince all these people to vote against you? You just lost. You're terrible. Who's the winner here, Andy?
Well, see, it was interesting because, yeah, they were both calling each other egomaniacs, which is like, wow, that just tells you everything you need to know about either of them. So I kind of like some of Coach's points that, Ozzy was so into himself because that's been true from the beginning. Ozzy is a far more popular character than Coach has ever been. But even like his first Cook Islands, he was the guy who like threw a challenge just so he could get rid of the fat kid. But once he was on like the underdog 4-person alliance, suddenly he became kind of like this cult figure when it's like, no, he's still a jerk. He's super awesome at challenges, but he's still a jerk. And then when he came back for fans versus favorites, it was even worse. And again, I think they were throwing challenges to get rid of the fans in that one.
And perhaps worst of all, when he comes back for the third time, he ends up on Cochran's tribe and just bags on Cochran relentlessly. That part actually came up on Twitter too. Someone said to him, you know, you were clearly an egomaniac and a bully and you were picking on Cochran. And he said, I wasn't disrespecting Cochran in any way. You can even ask him. So I did ask him. I haven't heard a response back from Cochran yet, but I have a feeling that Cochran's recollection of the events might be somewhat different than Ozzy's.
Yeah, but I'm sure Cochran's too big to get into it at this point because he's the biggest thing that's ever come out of the show.
You know what I think Cochran will do is if it really did hurt his feelings, he's just going to rub some of that $1 million on it.
But yeah, so it's like, yeah, good point, coach. But then Ozzy came back with tell it to Jesus. And I was like, oh, snap. Game, set, match for the Ozman.
Yeah, that was his clincher. And I have to say, not a bad one.
Yeah.
I was kind of impressed.
Now drop the mic and go.
He's not normally known for his wit, but that one was pretty good.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately the winner is us fans.
Exactly. Well, we're winners as long as neither of them get to come back anytime soon.
Yes, unless this leads to Ozzy versus Coach 2.
Please, God, no. So one other thing that actually it didn't come up on Twitter. I actually heard this through a different source this week. And I'm springing this on you right here just because I want to get your live initial reaction to this. I heard a casting rumor for next season. You want to know who it is?
All right.
You're a longtime basketball fan. Do you know the name Cliff Robinson?
I know. Wasn't there more than one Cliff Robinson?
There is a very specific Cliff Robinson.
Is it headband Cliff Robinson?
It is. It's Uncle Cliffy, who is all of 6'10".
Yeah.
And I'm very much looking forward to him being on the show and trying to pretend that he was not a former basketball player at 6'10".
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I get that all the time.
Yeah, you guys are probably just thinking that because I'm a huge guy who's got a bald head and looks like he's past his athletic prime.
And he'll be around the campfire and he'll be like, this reminds me of when barking.
Barkley, my dog. That's my dog's name.
Here's my prediction for Cliff Robinson being on Survivor. He'll be terrible.
I have a feeling he will too. You know what his best attribute will be? Grabbing coconuts out of trees because he's really tall.
Just wait till they do that challenge, though, where they have to, like, throw things in a hoop-type device, and his whole team just sits there and looks at him.
That'd be fantastic. He should do the move that you do with little kids, where you hold the ball up and say, come on, get it, come on, jump, get it, let's see if you can get it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am as well. I have no idea what the special wrinkle or whatever might be for next season, but that is the one bit of casting that I heard, is that Cliff Robinson is coming.
The theme will be washed up athletes from your old Skybox card sets versus others.
Everyone's an other in Jeff Probst's mind.
I went deep on that one. That's for, like, our two fans right there, Skybox cards.
Yeah, I like how we try to alienate our audience every week in any way that we can. Okay, so continuing our tradition of bringing in AV Club commenters as guests because we have no other friends, we're going to bring in a new one this week. For the first time, we have little Emma Adderall. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be the first woman on the show who didn't have to sleep with the host to get on the show.
I will say that M. Ratfink had to go through that too, so don't brag too much.
But yes, thank you for breaking up the sausage party that is internet commenting on anything.
When I was young, I was involved in a message board for a band that was almost exclusively girls.
Oh, and was that band appealing to almost exclusively girls?
Yes.
Oh, please tell me it was Nickelback.
Ew, what is wrong? No. It was Panic at the Disco.
Close enough. So, anyway, Linda Holmes from NPR wrote an article about the sexism and Survivor's problem with gender. So it's actually very fortuitous timing that you happen to be on because I'm guessing you might have some opinions on the sexism on this show.
Yeah, what an interesting coincidence that you brought the girl on when you wanted to talk about sexism.
You sit there and you talk about sexism, Token.
You're going to tell us how the patriarchy works and you're going to like it.
Yeah, well, we don't want you guys to mansplain it all, so.
Yeah, well, we were going to discuss it ourselves, and they were like, there's nothing better than two privileged white guys sitting on a microphone and talking about how things affect women, so.
Yeah. So you thought you'd bring in a privileged white girl?
Yeah, well, we're not talking about race here.
I mean, to be fair, we don't know what most of the people on AV Club look like.
I know what a few of them look like. We have a very sexy
I
crowd.
said most.
Oh, that's true.
I assume that everybody looks like their icon, Archer.
Thank you.
I look just like Buster Posey. Well, that's why I have a hard time not picturing M. Ratfink as, Ken Griffey Jr. with a grotesquely swollen jaw.
Oh, we are going so far off the rails already.
All right, sexism, Survivor. Go, lady.
Well, I read the Linda Holmes article because it was posted on AV Club, and that's what I do. I actually disagreed with a fair amount of it. There's the part where she talks about, like, oh, well, Jeff Probst chided, John when he, was doing what Candace said, and nothing happened when Brad told Monica to, throw it in the fire. And, saying how, well, Candace said, let's give it to Monica, and so she was asking politely and, blah, 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 blah. And, I mean, yeah, sure, she said the word let's, but I don't know that she was really being like, oh, let's do this, sweetie, this would be a good idea, because first of all, it wasn't, it wasn't like they were making a group decision. I mean, they were, but it wasn't like that was what's supposed to happen. And then Brad, I think, the only reason it sounded commanding was probably because he was kind of panicking for his wife because she was just targeted and he didn't want her to get voted out or be in trouble. Although I will say, yeah, maybe Jeff should have, if you're going to comment on one, comment on the other, which I think is why Candace did the whole, doing what she's told.
Yeah, so I think what was happening is Candace and Brad were doing the same thing. They were telling their spouse what to do. It's just Candace coded it in a language that women are more comfortable with and speaking in, inclusive terms and all of that. But it was just as pointed and just as directed.
Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like a parent-child thing, or if your baby's been oh, let's get ready for bed now, the single girl says to the two married with children guys.
So the other points in the article, I agree with you. She had some solid points, and there definitely is a problem with sexism on the show, and Probst in particular. But I feel like she reached on some of them. There's very clear cases to be made for the sexism on this show, and I don't think she built that case very well.
Yeah, and I think if you're gonna be building a case like that, use the ones that make sense. Use your strongest points. If you reach for it, people are gonna say oh, well, this one, that's not true at all, and then disregard the entire point, which just kind of hurts your cause.
Yeah, it was weird because you could make this article, you could post it pretty much every year for Survivor because there are problems endemic to the show and the community built around the show. But this seemed like the wrong season to do it. I mean, I think what tweaked her off was probably Brad, in that he started a Five Guys alliance and everything was five guys, and people were being voted out just because they were women. But I kind of got the sense that it wasn't really a big He-Man, us five are the best. But it was more that Laura was voted out first, and suddenly Brad found the easiest five, which had just happened to be male.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we discussed this all in the comments earlier, which apparently not everyone who listens to this is on the AV Club.
Shocks us to every day.
Yeah, I don't think people were saying when there was on Micronesia when there was the Black Widow Alliance that oh, they must hate men, these feminazis, rabble.
Yeah, I mean often alliances just kind of form along the easiest demographical lines, and because the way this shaped up, it was well, let's just do us five guys. Especially coming from Brad, is that he needed strength to nullify his own strength and the threat that he posed.
Yeah, it was definitely the best strategy he could have gone with. Aligning with the girls isn't going to really help much for his game, the only option his game has. But yeah, definitely different demographics align with each other. Even way back in Africa, you had the old people aligning with each other and the young people aligning with each other until there was the tribal shuffle.
The season that stuck out for me as far as sexism, the first one that came to mind really, was One World. Because they split them up between men and women, and you can almost see the disdain on Probst's face when the women start winning, just oh, guys, you're shaming us all at these physical challenges. And he would just regularly call out the women for their physical prowess. And he says afterwards that the season's really boring. I mean, Kim was one of the better players we've ever seen, and she's just not going to get credit from Probst because she's not the type of player that he likes to see.
Yeah, and that kind of gets to the point. Like, I think there is sexism on the show, and it's a good article to be written, and it's probably why it was shared. It's just, it seemed odd to write it for this season, or especially right now, when we just followed up 2 episodes of 2 alpha males getting voted out. But in terms of, like, sexism and Survivor in general, do you have any Linda Holmesy thoughts?
Well, I guess way back a couple of years ago or something, Jeff Probst did an interview with Dalton Ross, at Entertainment Weekly, and was saying how, if you look back at times when they brought back, when they bring back returning players, but not like a whole tribe's worth, your like Redemption Islands, your Guatemalas, etc. And Jeff actually said in that interview that he just doesn't think that the women have made as good of characters. There were some, he said, like concedes, like there, you have your Cerise, your Parvatis, etc., but that they've used them all up, they've already used them. There's no one left. And then he proceeds to, have Rob play 4 times, Coach play 3 times, Russell play 3 times.
So is it casting, or is it just the editing of the women is just not turning them into compelling characters? I can't believe that it could possibly be that there just aren't interesting women. I mean, yes, they have brought back some of them multiple times already. I mean, we've seen Parvati and Suri, and we've even seen Courtney twice.
I love Courtney.
Likewise.
She's my spirit animal.
She's a very tiny spirit animal. So I wonder if it's a problem of casting or if it's just how they're portrayed on the show.
I think it's editing, because the game itself is pretty neutral. In terms of like winners, players that have succeeded, things that have done well, it's pretty balanced between men and women. This is a kind of game that almost anybody from any kind of demographic box has won. So the game itself is fine, but the show often just doesn't seem to know how to edit that which makes a player successful. So Probst and the producers are still really excited, and they're still keep trying to find the next Colby, and that presenting this as this big physical battle. But meanwhile, this is a social game. This is a strategy game. And many women have excelled in that area, and many times by the end of the season, you get people on message boards like, oh, she was boring. She didn't deserve to win.
Yeah, I think Sophie is a very good example of that. Sophie played the exact game she needed to win, but she got such a boring edit that no one's going to want to see her back. I mean, she played a good game, but it wasn't compelling TV, so everybody thinks, oh, Sophie's a boring player. We don't want her back again.
Now, this one's going to hit hard for Emma, but Sophie and Cochran basically were the same. And Cochran is now one of the Survivor gods, and Sophie is just an also-ran winner.
Yeah, they basically play the exact same game, although Cochran did it with a much more charming and self-deprecating manner. But that's not to hold anything against Sophie. I mean, not everybody can beat Cochran.
Yeah, I liked Sophie. I liked Cochran in South Pacific. My crush started early. This is why I have such a strong claim to him. If you're listening, I love you. And Sophie, but I liked Sophie. I was definitely rooting for her, especially once Cochran was gone. I mean, it was so clear he was not going to win. So she was definitely who I was rooting for. But yeah, I think if you look at the winners that people complain about, like people who shouldn't have won, they're almost always women. The only man I can think, now correct me if you guys can think of anyone else, the only guy I can think of off the top of my head who people complain about winning is Fabio, Judd, but I mean, that was Nicaragua. Who do we want to win that season,
Yeah, the only winner was people who didn't watch that season.
Yeah, like, of who was left, like, there really were no options. Like, I liked Brenda, at the beginning, but she didn't make it very far, so it wasn't like that was a viable option. Like, would have people been that much happier if Chase or Sash had won?
Yeah, I mean, there are probably other guys that don't rate very well, but nobody complains about them. Nobody really cares about Chris Daughtry or Bob Crowley.
People love Chris Daughtry.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
Because it's because it was, that was another man versus woman season, and the women were ahead, and Chris snaked his way through, and basically took him all down at the end, and people love him. But when his people do complain about, you got, whether this is valid or not, but still you have Natalie White, you have Vecepia, you have
Sandra twice, Amber.
Yeah, Sandra. Both of Sandra's wins, Sophie. Probably some people don't even think, and people say Tina didn't win, Colby lost.
Colby made a very bad decision at the end. I will give them that.
Exactly, but that's how people say, like, and, that's definitely true, but still she got him to do that.
Exactly. I don't fault Tina in the least for her win.
Well, I mean, Tina beat him. That's the thing. I mean, and you're absolutely right. People won't give her the credit. And yeah, Colby did, screw himself because Tina should never have been sitting there. But once she beat him in the scoreboard that is Survivor.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Russell, especially after Heroes versus Villains, when he realized he once again hasn't won, that, people are voting wrong. It's like, no, you're just ignoring part of the game.
The most important part of the game. Yeah, I think Natalie White's an interesting part because, yes, she's always going to be one of the lesser winners. I'm not going to argue the other side. But while watching that season, I was like, she is going to win this game. It was there if you know how to watch in the margins of the show. But the show wasn't really interested in showing what Natalie was going to do. They wanted to show more Russell.
Exactly.
No, Russell was an airtime sponge. I mean, it was hard to see anything else on that season besides Russell and the people that Russell was using as pawns to get to the end.
As much as we want to fault the show, and Probst is, as the representative and just does terrible things in this area, some of it we already talked about earlier. By we, I mean the guys. We didn't bring the lady folk in to discuss that one.
No, of course not. Why would you do that?
Just like Probst, we don't like to include the women.
It's the fandom, too. I mean, Russell brought tons of fans back into the show. Fans want to talk about the big men, the Boston Robs, which, I mean, I'm a big Boston Rob fan, so guilty there. But even, they'll be like James or Rupert. And then, at the end of One World, felt like often I was out there on an island, no, this was a pretty decent season, and she was an amazing player. Yet, people wanted to ignore it because, I guess the guys were dumb.
And in that particular case, One World, I want to say, the last 5 or 6 were all women.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And there were, articles about, that, about how it was a problem that, what was wrong with Survivor because women kept winning it.
I had no complaints about Kim winning that season. And winning my heart.
But yeah, so, I mean, I think this is just always an issue, and I wonder if it's just because of the echo chamber of the internet, that, as discussed, it tends to be a little more male than female. I wonder if the demographics of the show, but then when you look at kind of the Sprint Player of the Year, it's usually a man, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, they discuss this, which it's odd that I'm bringing this up because I haven't watched the show in...
Are you going to talk about American Idol?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I was right on the same wavelength as you. Continue.
Excellent. But yeah, how the people who are voting are young, and I mean younger than me, young women, young girls, really, teenagers, who vote for, the cute guy.
Yep.
Malcolm won. Now, then again, I totally understand why Malcolm would have won last season. Although he should have won in Philippines, not Lisa Welch. Ugh. But that's another story. But yeah, I think that's part of the issue there. And because you did get a lot of votes for Brenda, which maybe they came from women, or maybe it was dudes who thought she was hot. Who knows? I mean, who votes for that anyway? Do you guys vote for that? We're all Survivor fanatics. I've never voted for that.
I've never voted for that. But it does seem like a type of thing that men would do to call up and vote to give Brenda money because she's a pretty girl.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of a middle America thing, but...
That's what I was going to say. It's probably the middle America people.
Who we all clearly sneeringly look down on. But...
Well, I mean, you're from Canada, and John and I both live on coasts, so we just know not of that world.
Andy, if we were looking at a map, you would be quite literally looking down on middle America right now.
I drive 5 hours that way. I'm in a state that nobody's ever been to. But yeah, so I think there's probably a balance, because clearly that's what the fans, that's who they need to cater to. When they can pull off these big characters like Malcolm, like Russell, the ratings spike. But the show is doing itself just a disservice from a storytelling standpoint by the fact that it hasn't seemed to figure out how to properly edit and showcase social game.
Mm-hmm.
So then at the end of a season, people complain that, well, why is so-and-so there? Why is Denise winning?
Denise was awesome, and Denise definitely should have won, but
Denise was amazing, and she deserved that one.
yeah.
Absolutely, but, we're three dorks talking on a podcast.
If Malcolm had made it to the top 3, it would have been close, and I would have been happy with either win. And I say that as, someone who was of Malcolm's age and understands the physical appeal of that man.
Okay.
Everybody speaking right now understands the physical appeal of Malcolm. We'll just get that out of the way.
Well, I don't personally find him that hot because he looks like my cousin, so that's weird. But I get that people do find him attractive, and I definitely see him as very charming.
All right, so sexism on Survivor is absolutely an issue. Just maybe not as much of an issue this season, except for every other time that Probst opens his mouth.
I think it really does come all down to Probst for the most part. The One World example, you said, the way he would yell at them for, not doing well. First of all, that really, I think, is a weird part of the game anyway, no matter who it is, when he's, actively pointing out how someone's doing bad in a challenge. I just don't really see the purpose of that.
You're just upset that he used to point out Cochran's failures and challenges.
Maybe a little. No. The one good thing about him doing that is it did bring Sassy Penner to the forefront.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Sassy Penner.
What I think he needs someone to sass him like Penner did, but he needs it to be a woman, and maybe she'll put him in his place.
But women are too smart in a social game to do that.
No, only sass Probst, only at challenges, where it doesn't really matter.
And then hashtag Survivor Sass.
Who's gonna vote someone out because they yelled at Probst during a challenge,
Not me.
If it didn't hamper their performance. Or if he's, doing his thing at Tribal and, tries to stir stuff up, have someone call him out on it. That's the big problem. It's not even just the sexism. It's he's trying to influence the game, and he should go back to being a little bit more of just a guy who announces the votes.
I actually don't mind his probing at Tribal Council because I understand that we're watching edited proceedings. So while it might seem like Probst is clearly digging into the one person that he needs to, I'm guessing he was digging into everybody until he got something.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it too much, but there are times, there's times where I feel like he oversteps it.
If he's tells somebody that they're worthless and explain themselves, maybe he did this week.
What an excellent example you brought up. I wonder where you thought of that.
Discussed it earlier.
Well, I wouldn't know that.
You will when you listen.
So every week, Andy and I like to do the historical discussion, and we like to bring in our AV club buddies for this because we know that you guys are just as nerdy about this show as we are. This week's topic actually came from you, Emma, so thanks for that.
You're welcome.
You sent me a list that I forwarded on to Andy. So the list profiles each person from every season through, it looks like season 16-ish?
19, I think.
It's through Samoa, I believe.
Through Samoa. Okay. So what they do is they break down applicants versus recruits. And I think the first 4 seasons, I'm scrolling through it now, which is going to make riveting podcasting.
So getting back to the subject at hand, let's just basic question. Where do you stand on the issue of recruitment versus applicants?
I think, to be fair, I have no idea, who's applying to the show, because how would I know that? But I assume that a fair amount of people are still applying. And so, I feel like you can get a pretty good amount of people in on that. Now, I know the reason, Survivor Race Wars and then Survivor Fiji.
Wait, just to be clear, it was not called Survivor Race Wars.
No, of course not. It's Cook Island.
I have to say that would be some bad marketing on their part.
That's probably what it was called, in the production meetings before they...
Yeah, that was the production title.
That's right.
Yeah, anyway, no, Cook Island, where they controversially split it by race for, the first 2 weeks, and then promptly shuffled it up, meaning that Ozzy's tribe throwing the challenge was completely pointless, but that's not the topic at hand. You'll probably see on your list, Cook Islands and Fiji had a lot of recruits. And this is because, people were talking about how white Survivor was. And allegedly, they said that their applicants were really about, 70% white. So they didn't have much to pull from. So they tried recruiting, they did more recruits to, bring people in. Now, I don't mind recruits who are, fans of the game. Apparently, I think Michelle Yee, it says, was a recruit, but like had either applied before, she liked the game. Like there are some recruits who had actually applied before, but then they ended up knowing someone. Like, I know, John, you said that Cochran surely, since he used to work for Yule, surely got hooked up that way. But Cochran is obviously also a super fan of the show who has probably applied before as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he took advantage of connections, like whatever. That's what people do in literally every aspect of life.
I do want to point out something about this list, though. The first one that I see, and this is the internet, and since it's printed on the internet, it must be true, so I don't doubt it in any way at all. The first recruit that they actually had, season 5, Brian Heidick.
Oh yeah, no, I remember reading about that actually, that they like, I mean, because he wasn't just a used car salesman, he's like the number 3 used car salesman in the country.
I like that you know Brian Heidick's resume.
He was also in softcore porn, but that's neither here nor there.
No,
that
like,
one they didn't know about.
Yeah, how is that not the first resume stat that you brought up?
I mean, I didn't like know that, like, I don't know if he still is. I know from reading about Survivor that that's what he was, at least. And so I guess they decided, you know, oh, let's get a used car salesman. Like, sometimes, I think when people think of recruits, they think of the pageant queens and they think of the, like, the models or the, you know, etc. But they recruit other people too. Like, Sekou on Cook Islands was recruited because they wanted a jazz singer for their African American tribe.
Yeah. I kind of feel like recruits has become this, what's that term that people use when it's not an actual... Oh, damn it. I was going to sound so smart for a second there.
And now you sound like an idiot.
Well, now, but when I edit it, I won't.
Well, I was going to say, we're going to edit that part out, don't worry.
Well, I'll know the truth.
You haven't seen how we do predictions on this show.
That's right. That's why these are posted so late. What's that? Yeah, okay. So I feel like recruits have become like the straw man that people like to argue against. Like as soon as somebody sucks, it's like, oh, what would you expect? They were clearly recruited. But I'm just going to cherry pick from the list here. I'm just going to list a few names here. We got Tyson, Stephen Fishback, Jonathan Penner, Yowman, Amanda Kimmel, James, Aris. We discussed Brian Heidick, Earl Cole, and Russell Hantz. What do all these people have in common? For one, most of them would appear in almost anybody's list of best all-time survivors. And the other thing they have in common is that every single one of them was a recruit.
Yeah, going back looking through some of these lists, the earliest recruit, like I said, was Heidick. I wonder if that also helped.
I think technically wasn't Rudy, though.
Rudy was recruited to apply, I think is my understanding. Somebody knew him and was like, yeah.
You know, you got to give him a pass for the first season anyway because no one knew what it was.
Nice save.
Yule is another recruit, and then you also kind of have another list of people that applied to be on a different CBS show that ended up being thrown onto Survivor, and then you got Parvati, Rob Sesternino, the godfather of Survivor knowledge, Amy Cusack. So recruiting isn't necessarily bad, and somebody being a fan and applying to be on the show isn't necessarily good, because here's another list for you. Crystal Cox, Kathy Sleckman, Chicken, Papa Smurf, Janu, Austin, and every one of those terrible people on Thailand besides Hot Brian Heidick all applied to be on Survivor.
I have to say, I was very surprised to see that Crystal Cox was an applicant because it seemed like stunt casting.
Yeah.
That makes me really wonder, it's like, maybe Lisa Whelchel says she applied, like... Maybe that's true.
Yeah, I mean, she probably bumped to the front of the list. It was like, oh, wow.
I think she, quote unquote, applied.
Yeah. That makes me, I know it's not true, but that makes me want to believe that Jeff Kent, did a little, application and, everything so badly.
So somewhere out there on the internet, there's a Jeff Kent Survivor application video.
You have no idea, you guys, my family, we have a Jeff Kent bobblehead.
Maybe that was his video. This is a bobblehead of me. This is my one World Series win.
He did not win, actually, and I would prefer if we did not discuss the 2002 World Series.
Hey guys, wake me up when we're done discussing baseball. So relevant to this season, by the way, Aris is a recruit, according to this list on the internet, that can't possibly be denied.
Aris and Tyson. So, look, some people can really get into the game after they discover that being on the show is a possibility. Or some people are really into the game and they just never really thought of, applying because, they have lives and stuff.
I did like to see that JT was an applicant just because, I don't know, I just thought that was cute considering, how ridiculous Tocantins was when, you have Brandon saying, now I'd actually rather that JT win. Like, it's not about me winning anymore. I want JT to, like, everyone was just like, let's bring this man to the final two and crown him victor. It was just so strange.
I know, you look at Tocantins final and it's like, okay, I got you Stephen Fishback and I got you JT. Pick the recruit. Almost anybody gets that one wrong if they don't have any prior knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I think it's so interesting.
So I think, when people like to blame recruiting versus applying, what they're really blaming is bad casting.
Exactly.
And the show has shown that it can cast applicants poorly or it can recast recruits poorly. And they can also do both well.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm one of the people that generally gets down on some of the recruits they have. But Tocantins was one of my favorite seasons, and it's 80% recruits.
Yeah, I mean, Tyson's your one true love.
He really is.
And I suspect now that Survivor's, Q rating is much, much, much lower than it used to be, that the applicant pool is probably a little shallow.
All right, John, this is our chance.
FYI, they did extend the application date through the 22nd.
Oh, I looked that up out of curiosity, because every now and then I, look at the whole application thing, and then I'm like, and then don't do it. But I couldn't find it.
Oh, good. Don't find it. You'll only increase my chances.
To be clear, you guys could both be cast in the same season because you're not competing with one another.
Yeah, no, but yeah, if we got on at the same season, we could have the first newbie pregame alliance, and no one would know because no one would know our real selves know each other.
And no one would know that I was going to backstab you right before Final Four. Oops. Spoiler alert.
Hey, if you can get me to the merge, you can backstab me all you want, because that's going to be if I can make it to the merge, I'm fine, but before that's going to be rough.
But yeah, and I think this kind of gets into the other problem people have with recruiting versus applying, which is easy for me to just brush off, is that, fans of the show often apply to be on. So you see somebody that sucks, it's like, you chose that person over me? Must be a stupid recruit.
Yeah, I think that's really where most of that complaint stems from, which I understand why people, they're understandably bitter, but if you're bitter because it's making the show bad, that's not as valid. If you're bitter because you want to be on the show, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but maybe you'd suck too.
Yeah, and once they start recruiting from podcasts that are listened to by literally hundreds of people, then recruiting will be awesome.
Exactly.
I can't dispute that fact.
Yeah, if I can get recruited because I start doing yoga with Vetus and Parvati, that's fine.
So every week we like to get our predictions recorded just so that Andy can look like a genius when they come true, except for this week. He was lucky that he didn't get to record his last week, so he could have totally denied that he was wrong on every prediction he made. So what are your predictions for next week? Who do you think is getting voted out?
Wait. We gotta back it up here. Bad hosting, John. There are so many ways that people are eliminated and things that are changing.
Yeah.
Voting out, just discussions is passé at this point. Before we can even talk about who's going to go, what do we think is going to happen next week? Because the previews say that, things are changing.
Yeah, that's what it's going to address.
Solid point. Yeah. Do you believe the teaser preview that we might actually be getting some sort of tribe mix-up?
I originally thought, I figured if these are a swap or an early merge, and I figured a swap is more likely because they don't want, even though, yes, the loved ones finally won, they don't want an oolonging, because that ruins the entire dynamic, the entire gimmick of the season, and that'd be dumb. So I can see if them, shuffling it for that reason. Plus, you get, you might have some people with their loved ones and some not, and they're still on the other side, and ooh, crazy stuff. Or you could get an early merge because no one would expect that because there's so many people, but that could be a little hectic because, there's so many people. But I think it was Ratfink who brought it up on the boards that, brought up the idea of a mutiny, which could be interesting.
I'll just state right now that I, raised the possibility of a mutiny in the very first podcast ever done here.
I don't remember that, but I'll take your word for it.
It might not even be true. I'm just going to put it in there.
Andy's going to go back right now and edit it in there. You guys don't realize that we're going to go back at the end of the season and we're going to just re-record that first episode. So it will sound like all of our predictions were dead on. I'm going to leave a dead space right now so that I can say that won this season.
But But yeah, I actually think it's going to be a merge. And I know it's really early, but as soon as they announce blood versus water, versus right there, what we want to see is loved ones playing with loved ones. Playing against each other, whatever. It's interesting when they knock each other around with big pillows or whatever. But the game of Survivor is voting people out. And if all the loved ones are gone before they even get to that, then this entire experiment has been a waste.
Exactly.
So I think they're going to merge right away and just deal with the consequences of having that many people another time, whether it be double vote outs or whatever.
So you think there's no sort of tribal switch at all? It's just a big merge this coming week?
I think the numbers are so off balance that a swap might not do them any favors. They might not end up having any loved ones on the same tribe. And then you might end up a continuing scenario where they just have to keep eliminating people. So if they did a swap, suddenly they'd have to merge the very next episode. It would look sloppy. I also think that they thought that swapping was going to happen more often on Redemption Island, so that swapping was supposed to be built into the system.
That's a good point. They probably did expect that, and we really only got the super obvious one that not only did everyone see coming anyway, but Probst kind of made happen. I mean, I'm sure Rupert would have done it regardless, but still, if he had doubts, he was like, you always say that you're so loyal and devoted.
How much do you love your wife?
If you don't switch with her, you're probably getting a divorce.
Andy, I'm so disappointed you haven't broken into the Rupert impression yet.
I've retired it because they're never bringing him back. Never bringing him back. He's coming back in 2 seasons.
Probably.
He's going to battle Clifford Robertson.
Spoiler alert, Clifford Robinson is coming.
So John, merge, swap, other.
It's going to be some sort of tribe shakeup. It's too early for a merge. Your merge idea just doesn't work for me. I think there's too many people, and you got to factor in the people potentially coming back from Redemption Island if there's a merge. It's just too many numbers there to put all into one tribe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what happens to the Redemption Island people if they merge? Do you think they so soon get rid of that?
Yeah, so I mean that's what makes predictions for this week hard, but I'll go because I'm always right, except for when I'm not. I think it's a merge, and thus 2 people are getting eliminated from Redemption Island. They're just gonna bring one person back to the game. I think that person's gonna be Laura M, and this is why. A couple weeks ago, I said that, just reading on Twitter that Rachel was like, I can't wait to meet your mom. Like she had never met Rachel, which just makes me think that's why Rachel makes the merge.
I love that you're making callbacks to old podcasts.
Well, I assume that everybody listening this week listened 2 weeks ago, and if not, you should download 2 weeks ago. Great episode. I think Laura M knocks off both guys using her puzzling skills.
By the way, if we were going to bring up a comment Rachel made on Twitter, I'm very disappointed that we didn't bring up the one that you and I discussed before the show.
Family podcast.
It is. We would have had to edit the hell out of that thing.
Although, actually, speaking of people tweeting vaguely spoiler things like that, I noticed on Vitus's Twitter, he said something about, haven't met Candace and blah, blah, blah. And but she's fiery. And someone replied, like, spoiler, if you haven't met her, you must not be going very, it sounds like you don't get voted off, or at least not for a while. And he replied that he has met her now, he just hadn't at that point, and he's basically tweeting as if he's back in that time.
Like in real time? Like he's tweeting from the island?
Yeah, he's trying to, tweet in his current mindset, I guess. Or not, in what his mindset was at that time. So it's possible that's what Rachel was doing, too, because she obviously already knows Sierra because she was on her tribe, so that's okay.
I mean, the other possibility is that they send them to different sequester points depending on when they were voted out. So maybe the first 4 people go one spot, and the next 4 go the next spot, and then it's the jury. So, yeah, it's entirely possible that I'm reading too much into the scenario, but Laura M sticking around fits in other crazy scenarios that I have in my head, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, I actually agree with, despite refuting your logic about it, I agree that Laura M is likely to stay. Although John has been very good, a lot of those Redemption Island things are puzzles. And, that is Laura M's strong point. And she will be, with this 3, at least she's the only returnee. So she has sort of the experience and, hopeful calmness or whatever that you guys have discussed as being important.
Yeah, I mean, John's been so good at puzzles, it's like, dude, you should have been doing puzzles before, and then you wouldn't even be in this situation.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Unfortunately, I can't make the contrarian pick here. I think Laura M wins the next week. I don't know that that means that she's coming back into the game just yet, but I'm thinking she wins the Redemption Island this coming week.
So this is my crazy scenario in my weekly attempt to prove that Sierra could at least stick around. Laura M comes back now, and then of course she immediately goes over to the loved one's side to be with her daughter and be with the people that didn't just recently stab her in the back. So now we got 7 people on one side, 6 on the other. Kat moves over to be with her boyfriend, and now the loved ones have the numbers advantage at 7-6.
I'm going to go back after this season and make like a supercut of all of your Sierra pandering and just prove you hopefully very, very wrong, because as I've stated so many times, I just don't see it. What?
Well, I'll make a supercut of how you vote every week that Sierra's going to get eliminated and keep sitting here looking like an idiot.
Touché, my friend.
So, this goes into my next one, so I think there's a merge. I think Laura M is back. I think they switch over. This gets back to earlier why I discussed that they should have voted Kat out. And thus my prediction for who's going to get eliminated this week is Tyson.
Oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Disagree heartily.
Going big on that one.
Yeah, it's go big or go home, and I'm going to go with go home because I don't see any way that Tyson's gone this coming episode.
He'll find himself at the bottom of an 7-6, and then he will get voted out in the traditional Tyson slot.
Oh, how dare you, the Tyson Memorial Boot slot.
That's right, first member of the jury, Tyson.
He wasn't the first member of the jury in Tocantins.
Yeah, he was like second or third member of the jury.
Well, I guess, yeah, that was probably Sierra or something.
He was the second. I just rewatched it.
All right, so there's my predictions. John, what are yours?
If we're talking about who's getting a boot, I think the returnees are once again going to lose, and I think they send home, because again, I'm not predicting a merge here, so I'm going to say returnees lose, even if there's a tribe shuffle, and I'm assuming that whatever left on that tribe includes, let's say, Kat. I'm going to stick with my Kat prediction.
You should just predict that Sierra's going home and whatever...
I have a standing prediction that Sierra's going home every week, so I'll mix it up by also saying that Kat seems like a likely target otherwise.
All right, Emma.
I mean, yeah, it's really hard to predict who would get voted off when you don't know what the tribes are going to be.
So give us 2 likely candidates then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also leaning more towards shuffle of some kind rather than a merge. So likely candidates, I don't know, this is hard. Probably Kat. I can see that. Maybe, honestly, I know this is cliche at this point, but actually, you know what? If it's shuffled and now that Laura M's gone, Sierra doesn't really matter anymore. Like, I feel like they're not going to care. I'll go with Laura B because they found her annoying and I don't think they've thought it through that she's an easy goat.
Oh, I was hoping we were all going to bag on Sierra together.
All right. Well, I think what we're getting at is that it's near impossible to pick what's going to happen next week because we have no idea who's going to be who and who's going to be what. Except, of course, that I made an awesome prediction that should entertain all our fans.
Absolutely. I'm just here to make friends.
And I'm just here to be awesome.
Mission accomplished. So, in an effort to alienate all of our listeners as best we can, we like to discuss the AV Club Fantasy League that we have going for this season. Little Emma, your team's in last place. How are you feeling about your team at this point?
Honestly, I mean, it's a little misguided, but like, I don't feel that bad about it because I'm happy with my Vitas pick and I like him and I'm happy to have a reason to root for him. And yes, technically the other 2 options I could have picked would have given me more points, but not a lot more. I mean, it would have been either Candace or Colton, so no matter what, I would have been down to 1 player by now anyway. Candace probably, would have been better just to get a few points for winning her challenges, but, it is what it is. I think with the information I had available, it wasn't a horrible choice because I was, third to last for the last one, and I think Vitas was a good choice for where I was, so whatever.
For what it's worth, both Rob Cesternino and his wife picked Rachel to win the whole game.
So, hey, at least I didn't do at least she wasn't my first pick.
And Andy, how are you feeling about your team? You have Sierra and Hayden, so you actually have 2 players that are still alive in the game, and I still think your team is terrible.
So yeah, I'm in second to last, and I think I was thinking about this today. It might have revealed a bit of a flaw in the scoring that we might need to look at for next season.
Oh, is that what you think, Russell Hantz?
No, it's more that we give combined reward and immunity points for these combined challenges, but that's rewarding two things for a single outcome.
Yeah, that's kind of not fair.
Yeah, I mean, we never had the problem last year because we forced people to pick on two different tribes, so we didn't really notice. But it's like, we'd have no way of knowing that the heroes would have won two separate challenges, although they probably would have. So whatever. Well, under the current game, the way it is now, yes, I'm second to last place, but I just showed you the scenario in which my team is going to make a stunning comeback, in that they are going to find themselves up numbers because they're merging. There's going to be 7 people on the loved ones side. They're going to systematically pick off the returnees. And then we're going to find ourselves in a final 3 with Hayden, Sierra, and Kat. And Hayden wins, and I come back in first place. Yay!
I just want to tell everybody to make sure you download this episode and come back and listen in several weeks, because when you hear it in a few weeks from now, it's going to sound totally different after Andy gets done editing it.
No, but I think the edit Vetus has been getting makes me feel like I can at least get out of last.
To be fair, you're going up against someone who had both members of Team Tie-Dye, so you got a chance here.
But getting back to my whining about bad scoring, yeah, Vetus has much fewer points than Laura B. I rest my case.
It's an objective scoring league, buddy. Sorry.
But yeah, in any case, we need to look into maybe not combined scoring for future years. It's a learning process.
Yeah, because I think, Andy and I were definitely at a disadvantage, even before Rachel was voted out, just by the nature of having 2 loved ones. Which, we will recall, before the season started, everyone was like, wow, the non-returnees are probably gonna,
Yeah, we were all convinced the loved ones were going to dominate this season.
That did not happen.
There's still time.
There's not much time, just to be clear.
We can do it, Andy.
It's happening, and it's going to be glorious.
Okay, so thank you again, little Emma, for gracing us with your presence. And next week, Andy's going to be flying solo because I'll be out of town just like Andy was this time. So you're going to be experiencing Andy without the dead weight dragging him down. I don't know exactly who he's bringing in as his co-host, but it won't be me because I'll be off enjoying a wonderful vacation. I'll still watch the show so I can comment the following week.
And he'll be crying about Tyson's ouster.
If Tyson were to lose, I think that would actually ruin my vacation. Me and Tyson are buddies. He's setting up for a future bromance with me.
All right, wrap it up. Oh, wait, that's my job, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I was just saying how you're going to be flying solo next week, so do you want to spoil who you're going to have on as your co-host?
Yeah, we'll keep them guessing. All right, so that's another week of people prattling on about Survivor. We may have possibly made it twice as long as an actual episode of Survivor.
We are going to heavily edit this thing, and actually what we're going to do is edit out the woman entirely, just like Probst would want.
Oh.
No, we'll just make her look weak, and that she has no deep thoughts about the game.
Instead of editing out my and pauses, you'll only have that.
And then that one laugh you just gave us every time we made a joke. Just
We're going to edit in us berating you constantly and then you just taking it in stride.
Wait, I know, we should also have me say, what Survivor really needs is more cookies.
All right, so tune in next week to see who will be here, and that's all for this week.